straightforward. I could say these functions be like it could be pretty much straightforward, meaning I can go ahead and widely used functions that you want to apply on top of any given business metric. So I can directly use these functions. All right, but there are cases that you'll be using some sub functions on top of a first level function. Okay, so let me go with the use case here. Now I have a simple chat. I'm pretty sure most of you know how to create this chat, but let me see how many of you are aware that I can go ahead and use one more click and I can find the growth rate compared to the previous month. I have $100 in November or it could be the $200 in December. Let's say what would be the growth rate from November to December. Just using one more click, I can go ahead and find the difference between each and every month, right? So in that case, you need to use the sub functions. So I'm not sure how many of you tried the sub functions options before, but please let me quickly go through a quick poll here in the chat. What function I need to choose to find the growth on every month? Can I see some answers in the question tab or maybe in the chat? All right. So I think, I get most of them are right. So thank you so much. There are a lot of response. Great. Okay. Yes, of course. You need to use the difference, but you need to understand. Do you see two different options here? One is percentage of difference from and percentage of previous value. Some people get confused here. So in terms of choosing the percentage of value from, percentage of difference from and percentage of previous value. So I just asked the question to see what exactly how exactly you're understanding in this. All right. So of course you need to use the percentage of difference from. So let me explain the difference between the previous and then the percentage of difference from basically. But to find the growth rate, right? So growth rate on month over month. So compared to the previous month, whatever the growth rate in the next month, I'll be able to use the sub function on top of it. Okay. So you need to use these functions extensively in many business use cases. So if you take an executive, typically if you deliver some insights to some executives or a C-level executives, of course, but they prefer to see what would be the growth and what would be the overall contribution of each and every department or each and every product. It could be the 100% group I and so on. Most of those reports are not used. I do see a lot of, whenever I see a lot of customer tickets or whenever I see a lot of partners inquiries, many prefer to stick with some basic report that shows the sum of total or sum of sales, or it could be any aspect. So in most of the cases, you'll be using the direct functions. So there are a lot of uncovered insights that you can use the sub functions to find it out. Okay. So in the question I have asked, obviously you need to use the percentage of difference. So that will help you to calculate whatever the growth rate when you compare to the previous data point, right? And there is another option called percentage of previous value. The difference between these two options are, let's say you have, for example, let's say you have $4,000 as a sales in November 2018, and then you have $6,000 December 2018. Now, if you take a difference from, basically it's a growth. So whatever the percentage of growth that you got from previous value, right? So in this case, if it is from $4,000 to $6,000, then obviously you got 50% of growth when you compare to the previous value. Okay. And when you compare to when you see $6,000 as a value in the December 2018, and when you use percentage of previous value, so when you take the comparison of previous value. If you take previous value as the 100% and then you compare it with the current value, then you will see what would be the percentage of growth that you have it from the previous value. So, there are different use cases that differs based on the business requirement. So you'll be using the appropriate sub functions here. Okay. Now I will explain two more functions which are widely used. One is running total. So running total is nothing but cumulative values. Let's say I have a sales let's say I have sales of $100 in November 2018, and I have $200 in December 2018. So the next bar would be like the sum or the accumulation of the first two values. This will be widely used. Let's say you are trying to track a report that shows the total number of followers that you have in your social media or something. Obviously, you need to use the cumulative total. Okay. So those are all the sub functions that you need to use in certain business use cases. And also another important sub function that you'll be using is 100% group by. So to use that 100% group by, let me go ahead and use another field in the chart. Okay. So right now I have a chart that shows the monthly sales that's happened in my business. So I go ahead and choose the sum and normal that shows the monthly sales that happens in the business. Now I'm going to introduce another field in this chart that shows the sales that happen based on the different lead source. Okay. So to get another dimension in my report, all I need to do is just drag and drop the field into the color shelf. So color shelf is another dimension on top of my chart that gives me whatever the sales that happen on every year based on lead source as well. So it's going to be the second level of grouping. Okay. Now I changed the visualization here. So you could see at the top how frequently, how simply I can change the visualizations using the menu bar at the top. So we offer a wide range of visualization. So I will try to touch base most of the visualizations here, which are typically used in the business. All right. So in this case, I just changed this to the stack bar chart. So that provide me the total sales that happen in every month and whatever the distribution of the sales based on different lead source I have. All right. Now, another function I would like to quickly explain is 100% group by. Okay. Meaning, if you consider this total sales that happen in April 2020, okay, the total sales that happen in the April 2020, if you consider this total value as 100%, what would be the contribution I have it from each and every, I got it from each and every lead source basically. Okay. So in this case, similarly, in the March 2020, if you consider this entire stack bar as 100%, then what would be the contribution I got from each and every lead source? So I want to see it as a percentage. So in this case, once again, you need to go ahead and click on sum and choose the 100% group by. Okay. And choose on what basis I need to go ahead and choose this 100% group by. When I apply this, I'll be able to see a chart. Now, each and every sales that happen, each and every sales that happen from different lead source are grouped based on 100%. Right? So you could see how exactly the distribution happens. So it could be a great metric when you go ahead and use a salesperson and see which salesperson has contributed a lot in certain period. Okay, and similarly, you can go ahead and see which department handled most number of tickets. So some of those use cases, obviously, you need to go ahead and use this 100% group by to see which particular data point or maybe which dimension contributed a lot. Okay, all right. Now, just coming back to the chart builder, I just want to explain a few more options here in terms of text size and other types of visualizations. But before that, give me a quick minute. I find some lag in using this particular account. Let me switch a different account. So give me a minute of time. Thank you so much. Excuse me for a minute. Let me switch a different account. This specific account. In the meantime, I do notice a lot of questions in the chat window also. A couple of questions in the chat window. Please do use the questions tab always to post your questions. Chat window is only to communicate about the connection problems or to share the general greetings and so on. So please use the questions tab. So excuse me for a minute. Let me try to switch to a different account. All right. So thank you so much for your time. So hopefully this shouldn't be a problem. All right, so I was just explaining the chart with the 100% group buy in terms of using the monthly sales and then the distribution or the sales distribution based on the lead source, right? So let me go ahead and quickly create the same report here. I'm sorry, there is some slowness in the service. So just give me a minute. Please excuse me for a couple of minutes. Let me quickly sort it out. So thank you so much. Please be on the line. Give me a couple of minutes. Let me sort it out and I will resume back. Sorry for that. All right. So thank you so much for waiting. Excuse me for my, I mean, we apologize for the quick inconvenience. We just noticed that there was some clash while we are trying to share the screen and as well as using the product. That's why there was a slowness. But anyway, I was just trying to stop the full screen mode and then I'm trying to coming to the application level sharing. And I hope that should solve this case. So thank you so much for your time. So let's quickly go ahead and continue the session again. So I was explaining this 100% group by. So basically the concept is I'm just trying to touch base the different functions and sub-functions that you could use in the chart. So I believe you understand this particular use case where we are able to find out the percentage or the contribution of each and every lead source in every month, and then the appropriate sales that we got from the appropriate lead source. And whatever you prefer to see it in the text as a data label, all you need to do is just drag and drop it in the text shelf, and obviously that will provide you the values in the text. So now I believe you understand that. I drag and drop the potential ID and the function is count, because if we cannot sum the potential ID. If we choose the function as sum, I mean the count, obviously we will be able to see the number of potentials that we have handled. All right. So I believe all right, so I believe that makes sense, that you'll be understand. I mean, you'll be able to understand that the number of deals or the amount that we have closed on each and every month from different lead source, we have closed in each and every lead source and on different months. So whatever you prefer to see it as a data label, please drag and drop it into the text shelf. All right. And also size is the another parameter that you may need to use while we are creating the bubble chart and so on. So it will be automatically used when you switch it to the bubble chart. So it is not necessary that you need to drag and drop the field in the size shelf. It automatically detects it. In case if you want to use a different field, then you need to use the size shelf. I will explain it while I'm creating a bubble chart. So this is how you create a chart in Zoho Analytics. And just want to touch base that the different range that you're going to choose and the different functions that you're going to choose, that will help you to help you to build the chart appropriately. And color shelf will help you to provide another dimension in your report. All right. Now, let me go ahead and create a couple of different visualizations here. So I'm just going to remove certain fields and let me go ahead and create a report that shows the trend and also the bubble chart and also the map chart. All right. So based on your requirement, I mean, of course, as I said before, typically whenever you see a volume-based metrics, you create a bar chart, or whenever you want to see a trend, you need to choose the line chart, or it could be the area chart and so on. And also whenever you prefer to see a distribution, then you'll be using the pie chart or a donut chart. So in terms of the distribution, the same kind of visualization, all you need to do is just drag and drop the field and choose the appropriate aggregate fields or aggregate value in the y-axis, and go ahead and choose the type of visualization as a pie chart or a donut chart. So some of the frequently used chart types would be available at the top. So if you click on more, you'll be able to find a lot more different visualizations on top of your data set. So you can choose the appropriate visualization based on your requirement. Now let me explain how exactly the the bubble charts has to be created. So bubble chart is something that similar to the bar chart, but it will provide you some size-based metrics. For example, let me quickly use the same use case I have shown you. So which is the monthly sales. So that shows the monthly sales in my business. Now, I want to see the all these parameters as a different size as a bubble. Then all I need to do is just go ahead and choose a bubble chart. So you see that automatically the amount field is included or added in the size shelf, and that determines the size of this bubble. All right. So even if you want to segregate this based on another dimension, all I need to do is just go ahead and use it. So that determines the size of the bubble based on the amount, and that shows the different lead source contribution as well. All right. So that's the quick overview of how to build a chart in Zoho Analytics and choose the different types of visualization. So let's say it could, in this case, it could be the bubble pie chart would be makes more sense, where in each and every bubble, whatever the contribution that you have it based on the different lead source. Okay. So you can go ahead and choose the different types of visualizations based on your requirement. Now, a couple of another use case, I mean, a couple of commonly used use cases is a chart that you want to compare two different values, basically whatever the amount versus actual amount. So in that case, instead of using the color shelf, you'll be using the multi-Y chart. Multi-Y chart is nothing but, let's say I just want to see whatever the amount that we have closed when we compare to the expected revenue. So I drag and drop the expected revenue and I drag and drop the amount shelf and I click on generate. That gives me the versus or a comparison between two different aggregate values or two different metrics. All right. Now, not just these two different metrics, you can keep on adding more information. Let's say you can have up to 15 fields added in the y-axis. So that provides the direct comparison. So any comparison that you prefer to do, all you need to do is just go ahead and drag and drop it in the y-axis shelf. For example, on each and every month, how many task only activities has been done, how many event only activities has been done, and how many calls only activities has been done. If I just want to compare those activities, all I need to do is just drag and drop it, and I'll be able to compare the different activities that being carried out. For example, here it is, let's say the total task activity, total events activity, and total call activity. So the concept I'm trying to touch base is any comparison between two different metrics that you prefer to use, you need to use the multi-Y chart. All right. So I hope you understand the requirement of creating the multi-Y chart, and also the color-based. I mean, the color basis like two different dimensions and one metric that you can use based on the color shelf. All right. Okay. Now, a couple of quick, pretty much self-explanatory that whatever you prefer to see it in the tooltip. So when I place the mouse pointer, I get some information, I get a box, and I get some set of information in my tooltip. So if I prefer to have or prefer to see more information on the tooltip, then all I need to do is just drag and drop the fields into the tooltip shelf. When I click on create and when I place the mouse pointer, I'll be able to see the different fields I have it. I mean, different information I put it in the tooltip shelf. So this is the level of interactivity that you can use it in the chart creation. All right. So I hope that was pretty straightforward and clear how to build a chart, but I believe you're able to understand the concept of creating a chart in terms of using the multi-Y or using the functions and sub-functions on top of your raw data set that comes from your business apps or database servers. All right. Now, in addition to this requirement, I just want to quickly touch base the filters and user filters. So let's say if you build this chart, for example, let's go back to the first example or the same use case that what we have created, the sales that happen on every month, right? Let me go to the bar chart. Okay, so that shows the sales that happens on every month. Okay, now what if I want to filter out some specific values, or what are all the possible way I can automate or make the filters dynamic? Okay, so to do that, I'm going to use the filters tab. So now you'll be able to see two different filtering options in Zoho Analytics. One is filters, another one is user filter. Okay, filters are nothing but, I could say, static filter in a chart level. Okay, meaning let's say you're building a chart. By default, you want to remove those values. At any given case, you don't want to see those values in your chart, then you need to use the filters. User filters are nothing but providing an option to the end user to play around with the chart. Okay, meaning you prefer to see those data points in your chart, but allow them to go ahead and filter it out or interact with the chart to find out some specific metrics. So let me start with the filters here. Okay, so in the same report, if I want to filter out some specific month or a year, I drag and drop the closing date because I have the closing date in the x-axis, right? So I drag and drop the closing date. I can choose the different range, of course. So it could be the year-wise, quarter-wise, month-wise, and so on. Even I can manually set some ranges. I can manually pick some range between or from and to. Okay, so based on that, I can, let's say I just want to see the sales that happens on 2019 and 2020 alone. I can go ahead and filter it out. Or let's say I just want to see the sales that happened only in 2020. I can go ahead and filter those values. It could be the different range like month-wise, quarter-wise, and so on. The other option is not just filtering this data, but of course you can go ahead and include or exclude these filtered items. Let's say I just choose the 2018 and 19, and I see some sales that happen on 2018 and 19, but I want to exclude this value. I can go ahead and use this exclude option. So including the value or excluding the selected value or something very important. You may use it frequently. Okay, now this is a kind of a static values. I could say if you go ahead and filter the value like month-wise, I want to see the last 6 months sales, then I can go ahead and manually filter the last 6 months, right? And I click on generate. So I get the last 6 months values all the time. So I just include it. Okay, so I'll get the last 6 months sales. Okay, in case if I prefer to make this process dynamic, because every month I don't want to go ahead and choose these values manually to see the last 6 months sales. So to do that, all I need to do is changing the filter type. So instead of actual value, if I choose the relative value, then I have the option to choose the last 6 months, last 3 months, or last 10 days, or whatever the range I prefer to select. Okay, so in this case, I just go ahead and open the month tab and choose the last 6 months. So that provides the same report, and this is dynamic. So from the current date, it takes the last 6 months. So whenever I go to May, or maybe let's say we are seeing the same report in May 2020, then November will be excluded and May will be included in my report. Okay, so this is something that widely used relative filter. So that you typically do, you see the, you set the range as a dynamic that happens automatically or that changes automatically. Okay, in addition to the relative filter, also you'll be using some other metrics. For example, let's say instead of seeing this monthly sales, I just want to see the sales based on the potential owner. Okay, so I have different potential owners, and I could say I have like 10 plus potential owners, but I prefer to see only the top 5 potential owners who contributed to my business. I mean, the salespersons who are contributed to my business. So what I do, I go ahead and use this potential owner as a filter here. I just go ahead and use the amount as a filter here. So when I use this, then I have the option of choosing the top 10, bottom 10, or it could be the top 5 or whatever the range I prefer to see. Okay, so top n or bottom n values. So in this case, I choose the top 5 values. Okay, so when I choose it, I get only the top 5 salesperson I have it in my business. Okay, so top 10, bottom 10, or even you can add a range, something like top 25 and so on. Okay, so here is the important feature somebody failed to use. I mean, when you're using multiple fields from multiple tables, based on some other dimension you prefer to see this top 10 or something, then you can go ahead and use this. So here you might notice that there is an option called by. Okay, when you choose the top 5, automatically you have something called by. So by default it's none. So when you go ahead and click this menu, you'll be able to find. So now I'm filtering, or now I'm seeing this report of top 5 salesperson based on the lead source or something, some other values basically. Okay, but in this case it doesn't make sense, but because obviously we are not calculating based on the lead source, we are going to use it based on the potential owner. So I need to use the potential owner. So the reason I'm trying to explain this is, as long as you're using these fields from a single table, It is not required to use this. You can directly use the option. But whenever you're using fields from multiple tables, and there are some data model where you have the possibility of picking fields from two different child tables and one parent table and so on, it is better to go ahead and choose the dimension that you're trying to apply on top of this filter. All right. So that's something that you will use it frequently. So you need to use the date filters. Typically, you use the relative values. You use the amount, or maybe it could be the any numeric or aggregate values that you use. Then you will find out the top 10, or even you have the option to go ahead and define a range. You can define a range that says the sales that happens above 1 million, or let's say the sales that happens between 500K and 1 million, and so on. So you can filter out based on that requirement as well. So for each and every use, it is not necessary to write a formula or a query. You can use all these extensive features in the filters and chart itself, rather than building in the formula and query. Okay. And also the top 10 and top 10 or top 5% based on the it could be based on the percentage or the discrete values or actual numbers also. So you can choose it appropriately. All right. So that's the filters. Now, let me quickly touch base the user filters. Before switching to the user filter, one recently released feature I'm trying to let you know, which is called the wildcard values. So this is one of the frequently asked feature. So this provides the contains filter basically. Okay, let's say my potential owner contains a value called David, a name which is there, value called David, or let's say the potential owner contains the value called Harold. Okay, so it's based on the different conditions you want to apply this filter. So let's say I'm filtering out only the salesperson with the name David or Harold. Okay, so this is kind of like a contains filter, not just choosing the actual values. You can use the contains, or it could be any different conditions that you prefer to use: exact match, or do not match, or starts with, ends with, and so on. So based on your requirement, you can choose this wildcard filter. This is something that we have recently launched. It's one of the frequently asked requests. So I'm pretty sure this will be super useful for many of the use cases. Okay, so in this case, we just use the filter name as, the filter as a potential owner, but typically you'll not filter out the potential owner. But it could be something like a lead source. Let's say you have a number of lead sources, and the lead source are something that you have something called partner. You have different values. Let's say partners, partner source, partner lead source, partner's contribution, and so on. So different values, you have it inside the lead source. So anything that matches the partners, I just want to filter it out. So when I use it, so it will filter out based on that particular requirement. So in this case, I don't have it, but anyway, this is how you need to use the wildcard filter. All right. So apart from this, let me quickly go through the user filters concept also. So filters, once again, let me tell you that if you want to exclude some values or include some values in an overall report level, then you need to use the filters tab. User filters are nothing but providing an option to the end user to go ahead and filter out your data. Okay, so let's go ahead and use a different example to explain the user filters here. Instead of the deals module, let me go to the leads module. And in the leads module, let me quickly see that how many number of leads I have received in every month. So I drag and drop the leads ID, and I take the count of the lead ID in the y-axis, and I take the monthly in the x-axis, and that gives me the number of leads I get in every month. Now let me quickly go ahead and filter out the last 6 months or something. So that's okay. So let me go ahead and filter out only the last 6 months, because we have a lot of data points to understand. Okay, now this is pretty simple and straightforward. I drag and drop some fields, and I created a chart that shows me the number of leads I receive on every month in my business. Okay, now coming to the user filters. Okay, Now, user filters are nothing but provide an option to the end user to filter the data, as I said before. So let's say your marketing manager prefer to see this report, filter it out based on the country and the state level or something. Okay. Now what I do, I drag and drop the country into the user filter shelf, and also I drag and drop the state into the user filter shelf. When I go to the view mode, now I'm pretty sure you might notice this button. This helped me to toggle between the designer mode and view mode. Okay, so only the administrators or the person who created the report will be able to edit the design of a report, and the end users who are seeing the report will be able to see it in the view mode, right? And please note that the user filter will be displayed only in the view mode. So when you go to the edit design, you drag and drop the fields here, but when you go to the view mode, you'll be able to see it as a component available at the top. Now, the marketing manager trying to filter out this report, let's say I just want to see whatever the sales I have or whatever the leads I have received from United States. I go ahead and filter it out. And also, I just want to filter it out based on the state level. So now you see a lot of state values here, because we are just getting a lot of, we are just getting all the state values. So I can go ahead and, I need to go ahead and find it out, or I need to search for it to filter some specific state value and see whatever the lead I have received in the specific states. Okay, so this is something that most of you might use it, but I just want to touch base a couple of features that's available in the user filter level. So when you go to the user filter and click on edit, you'll be able to choose whether you want to display the single value or multiple values. So you can pick based on your requirement. And also you have the option to see or select whether you want to display all the countries or specific selected countries. So in this case, I just selected only United States, United Kingdom, and China, Chile, and so on. I just selected only few countries, and I click on OK. So whenever the end user go ahead and filter out the values, since I provided the multi-select option, now the users can multi-select it, and also only the selected countries are displayed here. Okay, now, all right. Now we have a filter that shows only some selected countries as an option, where the end user can go ahead and filter it out. Now, we have another filter which is dependent to the first filter. Now I have a country and I have state. So when I go ahead and pick a country as United States, I prefer to see only the relevant states I have it in the United States. I don't want to see all the states in the world, right? So in this case, in the child user filter, or I could say the dependent user filter, I can go ahead and edit it, and I can choose this behavior as list only relevant values. So this will allow me to see only the relevant values whenever I'm trying to filter. For example, here, let me go ahead and choose the United States. So since I chosen the United States, now the state value is, you see only the state values which are related to United States. We are not seeing all the state value from different countries, right? It works on the cascading mode. From the first filter, you're able to see the second filter on the cascading mode. All right. So that's something that many of you might not use it frequently. So cascading filter is something that you may need to use based on your business use case. So that's very important. Okay. And also here you might notice something called default value. Default value is nothing but, let's say I want report. Let me go ahead and add another field in the report. For example, let's say I just don't need to drag and drop the country as a field in the color shelf. So that give me a report based on the different countries. Okay, and I choose only the country as a selected countries, which whatever I prefer to see. Or maybe since we have already used it in the user filters, so we can directly use it there. Now, whenever I open this report, okay, I always prefer to show the default value as United States. Okay, so what I did in this default value, I specified a specific data point or a value. So whenever somebody opens this report, they will be able to see only the United States as a value. Then they can go ahead and see for the different countries. All right. So I hope you understand the concept of specifying a default value, creating user filters based on the previous filter. So it's going to be like a cascading values, and also selecting some specific values to be displayed here, and also allowing the options to choose a multi-select. All right. So similarly, I believe you are able to understand the concept of using the filters with relative values, choosing the top 10 and bottom 10, and also the wildcard values, which you may new to this concept, or you are using it only for the first time, you hadn't used before, right? So those are all the additional features that you use in addition to the regular filtering options. Okay. Now, just want to quickly show you in terms of geo chart, because a couple of features I just want to let you know in terms of geo chart, because whenever people try to create a report based on the geo chart, we get a lot of questions that some places are not recognized, some places are not unidentified, goes, I mean, how to use the latitude and longitude and all those values, all those questions. So in that case, I mean, I'm just going to quickly showcase how to create a report based on the geo information. So I drag and drop the country. Now you see that I have the geo information available here as a data type. So already I have this information in my leads table. I have a column called country, and then I have a column called state, and then the city. Okay, so the advantage, or maybe while you're using the geo chart, will help you to easily visualize based on the location rather than creating it as a bar chart or something. Okay, but whenever you're trying to use a geo chart, it is highly recommended to maintain a hierarchy in all levels or all stages. For example, you're getting a data only based on the city, then obviously you will have a conflict of plotting some values. For example, let's say here I want to see the city-wise sales. Now we get a report that shows the city-wise sales, right, across the different places of the globe. I can change the type of a chart. Let's say it could be the bubble pie, or maybe let's make it more easy. Let's create a heat map chart that shows the sales that happen in a different locations across the globe. Now, I'm not sure many of you have noticed this. At the left, you have something called unresolved locations. Okay, unresolved locations are nothing but when you click this, you will find a whole lot of city which hadn't identified because of this text. So now you see that some of the text were not identified. It's, let's say, I guess it is Bogota or maybe Newcastle and so on. So some of the location names were not identified due to the text problem, but still you see that Paris and some of the most popular cities were not identified. The reason is whenever you drag and drop only the city information in a chart, right? There are possibilities that the city exists in multiple countries. Okay, so one of the best example I could say is Hyderabad in India. There's also there is an Hyderabad in Pakistan, right? Also there is a Punjab. There are some another location in the different places, or even there are some small city names you will find it in different countries. Okay, so it is highly recommend you to maintain certain hierarchy in your base tables itself. Okay, so it is highly recommend you to go ahead and use the country, and then the state, and then the city. Don't try to use directly cities in many cases. Or if whenever you have latitude and longitude values, that would be great. You can use or try to plot some non-identified or non-familiar locations, like if you're trying to plot some location which is not a city name or something, then it's suggestible or it is recommended to use the um, latitude and longitude values. All right. And also, some of the features you might not notice. So here, when you see this map chart, I'll be able to see the map chart across the globe. But I always, whenever I open this report, I prefer to focus only on a specific country. For example, here I want to focus only on a European region. So all I need to do is in the edit design, I have the option to set a current view as a home. So when I choose this, all I need to do is I can go ahead and choose a specific location, something like this, right? And I can go ahead and choose it as set the current view as a home screen. Okay. And when I save this report, and when I access this report, by default, it automatically chosen or focus the location that you have, where you can zoom out and see the other values. But by default, whenever you see this report, you will be able to you'll be able to see only that specific area or the range that you have chosen, right? So to do that, please use the option at the left where you click, you click the grab area or select some specific area and hold the mouse on the home and go ahead and choose the option called set as a home, set current view as a home. All right. So these are all the important points that you need to take a note while you're trying to create a map chart. All right. So in addition to the map chart, I just want to quickly touch base another types of visualizations which I believe most of you might not use frequently. Okay. So for example, like heat map chart. Let's say I just want to see which lead source and which industry has most conversion rate. So I drag and drop it in the x-axis, y-axis, and also in the color shelf. Now you see that the combination is slightly different. I'm using two dimensions or two dimension fields in the x-axis and y-axis. I choose the color where I want to see the metrics. All right. So now you see a report or a heat map chart that shows the. So now if you see this report, you can easily go ahead and pick which is the least performing lead source and then the industry. So advertisements and communications, which are the best performing. So anything above 55% is available here. So you can hover the mouse point on the legends and you can choose these things. So some of these visualizations are most not used frequently. So you can choose these kind of visualizations based on your requirement. Okay. And one of the frequently asked question is how to create a report which shows the year-over-year growth, okay, or month-over-month growth. Not just choosing the percentage of difference, but of course you can go ahead and use some other combinations also. For example, the same use case which I have used before, I'm just going to quickly touch base that. Now you see the monthly, let's say, monthly sales. So I drag and drop the amount here, and that gives me the monthly sales, right? And I click on the bar chart, that gives me the monthly sales. Now, what if I want to compare this month-over-month growth compared to the previous year? Okay, so now I see this granularity right from 2018 till April 2020. What if I just want to compare the January 2019 and January 2020? February 2019 and February 2020. Okay. Now, in this case, you may, once again, some of the functions and subfunctions I have explained clearly, but some of the ranges you might not use frequently. So even in this case, you just need to go ahead and choose it as seasonal and go ahead and use the same date into the color shelf and choose the value as year. So hope you understand that. Seasonal is irrespective of the year or irrespective of the grouping of the quarter-wise or year-wise or something. I'm just going to commonly define a season called month. It could be any year. Okay. And here in the color shelf, I use the year so that I can compare this year versus the previous year. right? Now here I have a report. Let's filter out 2019 and 20 in specific. All right, now you see this report. It shows the comparison or sales comparison between 2019 January performance and 2020 January performance. Similarly, February, and so on. So these are all some year-over-year comparison. So these are all the reports that not frequently used or not created very often, as most of you use the default functions like sum, average, and so on. So try to use the multiple combinations and try to build more powerful chart or any kind of visualizations in Zoho Analytics. All right. So with that, I'm just coming to the end of the chart creation, choosing the different types of chart, applying the functions, applying the filters, use of filter concepts, and everything. Okay. Let me quickly explain the customization options that we have it in the chart. Okay. So to create a customization, I mean, to explain you the customization options that we have it in a chart, let me quickly use the same example that we have created, drag and drop the closing date, monthly sales, and based on the lead source. The same report I just created again, just to quickly explain you the customizations of options that we have. Now, when I talk about the customization, I'm not talking about the data points or something. The customizations options are the label at the left. For example, instead of showing the actual numbers completely, I just prefer to use a notion, something like K or million or billion and so on. Okay. So similarly, I don't want to have this label at the bottom or at the left, or I prefer to see this tooltip or the legend at the bottom, basically. I mean, the legend basically at the bottom, or I want to customize this tooltip with some other text. Everything you can do it here in the settings option. So at the left, when you go to the settings, you see the axis where you can change the label, of course. Okay. And of course, you can change the font, color, and all those stuff. But some of the important features are something like you can display the appropriate y-axis values. You can display the appropriate total stack value here. If you want to take out the label completely, you can remove that. Here, you don't want to see a lot of data points at the left. For example, we have a lot of data points at the left. You prefer to see only some specific data points, or maybe a very small range. So I can specify the interval as 6 data points or something like 8 data points. Okay. I just remove this as month and year. I remove this data label completely. Okay. Show me the total stack value out of it. So some of the customizations, even if you want to exclude this y-axis completely, you can do it. Okay. Because I mean, there are cases that you prefer to not to see some values, but you just want to show the overall growth or something. You can remove that completely. All right. So borders and colors, removing the grid lines and all those stuff, and formatting. So here it is very important. In terms of formatting, let's say whatever the tooltip label I prefer to see, I can go ahead and set that text here. And I just want to ignore the text like total. I want to see only amount, lead source. Now in this amount, I don't want to see the actual values. I just want to take it in a unit, something like million, billion, and so on. So let me go ahead and choose these values based on my requirement. All right. And I just want to see how many decimal points I prefer to see, only one, and so on. And I click on OK. So basically that will help me to change the way I display the chart. Okay. And also the legend. So if you want to change the colors of these charts, you can go ahead and change it. It could be a set of colors, or it could be the mono color, like in a single shade, or it could be a gradient where you can imply a multiple color range and so on. And also the legends at the left, at the right, which you prefer to position or display it at the bottom, you can do it. And I'll come to the threshold feature and drill down feature in detail. But when it comes to the threshold, I mean, this is how you make a customization in a chart, right? The look and feel of the chart has been completely changed as the way you prefer to I mean, as the way you have seen before and the way that we have changed it right now. All right, a couple of features in terms of the threshold and drill down feature. So when it comes to the threshold, threshold is kind of like, let's say you have a target. So for this, in this report, I believe we are achieving somewhere around like 2 million. So let's say 2 million is my target. I just want to set a static line as a 2 million. So let's say I just name it as target, and I set a constant value as 2 million, and I want to display the color of that line in red, and so on. That's it. So when I apply it, you see a threshold bar that shows through 2 million as your total target, basically. Okay. Now this is a static threshold for a chart. You can also do a dynamic threshold. So dynamic threshold is nothing but, let's say target is available as a column inside my table. Okay. Then instead of using this constant value, even I have the option to go ahead and use some other value. For example, here my target is the expected revenue I'm supposed to get. So I drag it, I choose this expected revenue as my target, and I choose that average. And that there are different options. One is for the entire chart, you want to see a constant target, or for each and every month you have, let's say the monthly values, right? So similarly, per cell or per month, you can just choose it. So in this case, let me go ahead and choose the value as sum and choose it as per cell. And when I apply, now you will see this threshold differs. Now when let me zoom and show you. This is the actual amount I have closed out of different lead source, but this is my target only for the month of June 2019. So you see that the target differs for each and every month. It is not a constant line you have. You have a target that differs on each and every month. Okay. Or even let's say I just want to use it as instead of, I mean, I can apply different function on top of it. So basically not just the sum, it could be the average or minimum or maximum value, what I was expecting as a revenue, and so on. Okay. Now, coming back to the same report, now we see this report based on the different source, right? So we have a report that shows the total amount and then whatever the target I have. I just remove the lead source just to explain some features and the drill down. Now I have this report that shows the sales I made it on every month, and of course I have a target for each and every month, and I think we are almost close to the target, but I guess target was not achieved in any given data point. Okay, all right. Now here it is a very important concept, or maybe I could say the feature. When you go to the view mode, you see this report, you place a mouse pointer, and you see something called tooltip, right? So the tooltip is nothing but providing some additional information on top of whatever the data that you see. So instead of amount, I want to see a profit, I can include it in the tooltip and see that. Now, when I click on this data point, I have different drill down options available. So the one level of drill down I could say is view underlying data. So for this particular data point, whatever the underlying data I have, I can view it. Of course, I can go ahead and filter it out or sort it out and see some, let's say in this month, whatever the sale that been closed only by this particular sales owner, I can go ahead and filter it out. Okay, so I can view the underlying data, I can filter it out and see some specific values out of it. And also, once you save this report, all the features will be available. Now, that's one level of interaction, tooltip or view underlying data. Now, in addition to that, you also have the option to drill down to a next level. So now we are seeing this report in a monthly level. I can drill down and see it in a week level. And I can also drill down to a day level report. So this path that is right from month, I mean, I could say year to month, month to week, and so on. This is something straightforward because you have a date. So obviously the chronological order will be there. I mean, or maybe the hierarchy is pretty much aware of it in terms of year-wise, month-wise, quarter, I mean, the year-wise, quarter-wise, month-wise, and day-wise, week-wise, and so on. So you know that, right? So that's something that you can see the drill down directly. Okay, so when it comes to the second option, which is nothing but static drill down, you have the option to set something called dynamic drill down. So dynamic drill down is something called drill down by. If you choose the drill down by, you have the option to choose any other dimension. For example, let me come to the same example. Based on my lead source, what is my sales? I can drill down and see in December 2019, from each and every lead source, this was my sales. And let's say from the advertisement, we got good sales. When I click on this advertisement again, I can drill down it and I see which potential owner closed most number of deals. So you could see the value behind this. When you see a report which just shows the monthly sales, from there you will be able to see from which source you got more number of sales or less number of sales, and from which lead source, which salesperson, or maybe somebody might be presenting in the trade shows or attending trade shows. So which potential owner or salesperson doing a lot of conversion, I can go ahead and do another level of drill down. So this is called a dynamic drill down. On any given data point, you'll be able to do the two level of drill downs. One is dynamic drill down and the static drill down. Static drill down is something that pretty much known. When you use the date field, it automatically know the hierarchy and it uses the static drill down option. Even you have the option to go ahead and set this manually. Okay, meaning the static drill down, if I click on a specific field, what option I'm supposed to get next. Okay, I mean, for example, let me go with a different use case here. You create a report that shows the country-wise leads we have received, right? So I just drag and drop the country in the x-axis and the number of leads I have received in the y-axis. I choose the count. Now that shows the country-wise the leads. Now when I click on the country, I should be able to drill down into the state level, right? Even when I go to the geomap chart and let me choose the bubble pie. So even in the geomap chart, you'll be able to see that when I click on a data point, I'll be able to see this in a state level. And from the state level, I want to see it in a city level. So these are all the static drill down path that you know, because you know the hierarchy. If you want to set some custom drill down path, then you can go ahead and use this. For a specific chart, you want to set a custom drill down path, then you can go ahead and set it up in the settings. Or if you want to set it as a global settings across all the charts that you're going to create, then you need to choose the table, and you need to go ahead and click on the edit design in a table level. All right. So there are two different options. One is you're doing this in a table level, which can be globally applied on all the different charts and reports that you have. Or the second one would be you do it in a report level, which shows the report level hierarchy. For example, here, when I go to the report level, I have the option to set this drill down path manually. So instead of a state, I want to see some other value in the next. As the drill down path, I can set it up. Manually, I can configure my drill down path. This is in the report level. If you want to do this in a table level and you prefer to see this applied for all the options, then you can go ahead and use this table level settings. In the table level settings, I mean, if you click on edit design in the table level, then you have the option to set the drill down path in the table level, which could be applied for all reports that you're going to create on top of the table. All right. So I'll just quickly show you that. Give me a minute. Sounds like there is a lag. Yeah, sorry for that. All right, so I'm just trying to refresh the screen and continue showing the example. Sorry for the quick delay. All right. Okay, so when you go ahead and click on the table level edit design, you still find some options called drill down. So in a table level, if you set this drill down path here, so obviously based on the drill down path that you set it in the table level, right? So if you click on state, what is this supposed to be? What would be the next level? If you click on the country, what would be the next level? Or even, I mean, this could be your your customer's data set, right? So typically they have their own use case to see some specific values. So they may have their own data model or something they want to provide, specify some path, drill down path. They can do it on their own. All right. So that's how you create a chart. That's how you customize the charts and change the different types of chart, or identify the year-over-year growth, month-over-month growth, and so on. Now, I hope, I mean, some of the concept I'm pretty sure might be basic. Most of you are aware of it, but I hope some of the additional features like the wildcard filter, or understanding how to create a month-over-month, year-over-year chart, or identifying or setting up a specific area in a geograph chart, or calculating the 100% group by percentage of difference. All those stuff might be not familiar for all. Some of them might be new to this concept. So I'm pretty sure that might be helpful for you. And I'm pretty sure at this end of this topic, I'm pretty sure you're able to understand how to create a chart in a very extensive way, not just creating a chart with the simple fields and choosing the regular functions. You can do a lot more than just creating a chart based on the default functions which would be available. All right. So that's how you build or create charts in Zoho Analytics. I'm not going to extensively explain all other types of report creations, because I'm pretty sure the process would be same in terms of drag and drop the field, choose the types of visualizations, and so on. So let me quickly show you how to create a pivot chart. So I'm going to, no, I'm not going to explain deep about summary view, tabular view, and so on, but let me quickly explain about the pivot view. Okay. So pivot view is, of course, a tabular view which provides more information. I mean, extensive information. So something like, let's say, this is a pivot view. So instead of a chart, you can get some more insights in terms of, I mean, a very precise way of seeing some specific numbers, or a tabular view to identify what exactly that's happening in your business, right? So that's the pivot view. In Zoho Analytics, of course, the pivot view is pretty simple. You can just go ahead and use the simple drag and drop function again. So let me quickly go ahead and create a pivot view here. So when I click on new, and I mean, sorry, just chose the chart. So let me go ahead and create a pivot view. So go ahead and choose the pivot view at the left, I mean, the drop down. Now, instead of the x-axis and y-axis, here you have something called column, row, and data. Okay. So whatever you prefer to see it in the as a row heading, you drag and drop that field into the row shelf. Now you see all the row level headings. So in case if I want to see all these salespersons or potential owner as a column header, I drag and drop it into the column shelf. So column header or row header, whatever the grouping or the dimensions I prefer to see, I can drag and drop it here. All right. Now, similarly, I prefer to see more information, something like the same use case. Let's say let's see the monthly sales I have based on the lead source. So I drag and drop the lead source in the column header, drag and drop the row shelf with the monthly sales. Let me filter out only the last 3 months. So based on the last 3 months, I have some sales I prefer to see. I drag and drop the amount in the data shelf. Now you see the last 3 months whatever the sale I have received from different lead source based on the amount, right? So that's pretty much straightforward. You can go ahead and create a report simply just by drag and drop the appropriate field. So I just remove the lead source, and I prefer to see something like in each and every month, whatever the sales that was closed by the salesperson. So I drag and drop the field in the row shelf that provides me in that particular month, whatever the sales done by the different leads. So I mean the salesperson or the potential owners, right? So basically, just want to explain you the concept that the pivot view is multi-dimension expandable. You can keep on adding the different dimensions here, and the pivot view will expand based on that requirement. Okay, so now you see multiple levels here. So the month-wise, potential owner-wise, whatever the sales that they did, and that's based on the different lead source. Okay, so not just amount. You want to compare the expected amount versus the sales that they made. I can go ahead and choose more information out of it. So basically, it's a multi-dimension expandable. I can keep on expanding it, but of course, if you have a lot of fields in place, obviously it is not readable. So in this case, if you see that we have a lot of information here, so it is impossible to capture or see everything in one view, right? So in that case, it's highly recommended that you need to go ahead and use the filters and choose only the required information out of it. So that will help you to give some specific values here, right? So this is how you create a pivot view. Some of the important features I just want to touch base in a pivot view level is, let's go with a very simple report again. I just see the yearly or a monthly sales that happened, okay? Now the same functions and sub-functions are available, right? So the actual sales, I just want to see the percentage of growth or percentage of difference from the previous month. I can go ahead and apply it here, okay? And also, I'm sure you might have noticed, do I need to compare it with the previous value or the first value or next value? Some of the additional customizations that you can do on top of it, you can do it, okay? Now, I just want to showcase you that the pivot view is multi-dimension expandable, but also you can do a lot more customizations in it. When you right click on it, you can apply some conditions or apply some conditional formatting out of it. So let's say if I find a deal value that crosses more than 500K, okay, then greater than 500K, then I prefer to see that in the green. So you see that in the text in the pivot view I have created. When I apply the condition formatting, right click on it, go ahead and apply the condition formatting. So if anything that greater than 500K, I want to see that in the green. Additional condition, so anything that goes less than 500K, I want to see it goes in red. So I can apply these condition formatting on top of a pivot view and see some growth out of it. So this is not just changing the text color. The condition formatting can be a lot more than the text color. For example, I can click on this. I can show some icons instead of showing the regular values. For example, some emojis that shows that if something that goes beyond 500K, then I prefer to see some smiley out there. Okay, so I can just go ahead and choose this. Now you see that in addition to the 500K, have a smiley out there. Okay, so this is a bit extensive. You can customize it as the way you want. So the conditional formatting options to do a lot more changes out of it, or something that, I mean, you can have some KPI trend kind of a thing that shows the things are up or down and so on. Okay, so that's more extensive and more customizable. And of course, you can use the filters and user filters as I have explained. And also you can change the color, the look and feel, the theme of this pivot view, change the font, and also expand the row size or zoom in or zoom out based on your requirements. All right. And one of the recently released feature in the pivot view is you can also have something called expand and collapse. For example, let's say I just want to see the lead source wise, potential owners, whatever the amount that they have closed. Now we have two different, let me zoom down. Okay. Now we have two different range. One is like in this lead source, whatever the potential owners, and then whatever the amount that they have closed. I can make it as compact view, which is something that based on that specific heading, I'll be able to, below that, I have a set of potential owners. So this could be widely used when you create some financial reports, like almost a P&L report or a balance sheet view or something, right? So you can use those options. And also you can decide what you prefer to see. For example, do you want to see the row total or a grand total out of it? So let's say I have multiple segregation on top of it. For example, I just want to see it in the year wise. So more additional segregation like a year wise. Okay, so the year wise, lead source wise, salesperson wise, whatever the sales I have. In the show or hide, I can decide that whether I want to see this grand total at the bottom or at the top. So the grand total will be available at the top. Okay, and also I just want to decide, I can decide whether I want to see the subtotal or I can hide all the subtotal and the grand total. Okay, so a lot more extensive customizations are available in the pivot view also. Okay, so based on your requirement, you can create that. But one particular feature which I prefer to touch base in the pivot view is, or maybe you might have noticed when I'm trying to create a chart also, we have something called add formula here. So this is called a report level formula. Okay, so it's not just the formula that you need to create in a table level. Some of the calculation you prefer to do directly in the report level. Okay, so in that case, for example, in this example, I have two lead source basically. In this, based on the two lead source, whatever the total sales I have received. Now I just want to compare or maybe take a difference of whatever the expected sales and the actual sales. So I go ahead and click on find the diff, expected sales minus the actual amount. So I have a new field which is available where I see the difference. Okay, so this is kind of a handy, some kind of calculation or some kind of use case you want to apply some calculations on top of a report, then you can use this report formula. Here you can use the if conditions and so on. It is not very extensive to use all the functions, but some of the basic functions on operators can be used in the report level. So that's the report formula. Okay, so you'll be able to use this even in the chart view. So I'm not going to touch base the other types of reporting objects like summary view and tabular view, which are pretty much simple and straightforward like pivot view and so on. So I'm going to skip that, but I just want to let you know that summary view is a kind of a lighter version of pivot view. You can just only use the group by, and also you can use the appropriate aggregate values to go ahead and use the pivot view. All right. So with that, I'm just going to come to the end in terms of visualizations like creating a chart and pivot. Okay. So after this, let me explaining the forecasting feature, ASIA, and then I'll explain how to create a dashboard. So those are all the topics that we will be quickly touch basing. I mean, like in terms of how to create a forecasting feature and how to create report using ASIA, how to train ASIA, how to create dashboards and widgets out of it. Okay, so let me quickly touch base the forecasting feature. So forecasting feature can be created only when you have a data that shows the date-wise information. Okay, so let's say you want to see the date-wise information, then all you need to do is just go ahead and, I mean, let's say you want to make a prediction out of what exactly the trend you will be facing in next 6 months or next 3 months or something. Then you need to have the drag and drop. I mean, you need to use the date field here and choose the appropriate y-axis. Now to enable the forecasting, all you need to do is just go ahead and click on settings and click on forecast. So let me create a new report and show you how to create a forecast. So let's say I want to see the sales trend of next 6 months. So I have the data for last 2 years or something. Okay, then all I need to do is just go ahead and create a new chart here. I drag and drop this closing date. I have the monthly sales information, and I click on next. Of course, I will see a trend that shows the sales. Let's filter it out and see only 2019 and 2020. So we have a sales trend that shows the data right from 2019 till date. Now I want to see what would be the forecast for next 6 months. To do this, I just need to go to the settings and I go to the option enable the forecast, add forecast. So this, I'm pretty sure when you see this, when I click on add forecast, whatever the field I have used in the chart in the x-axis, the y-axis, I'll be able to see that as the option. So I just add the forecast feature and I choose how many data points I need to forecast, next 6 months or next 3 months or whatever. So in this case, I just pick the next 6 months. Ignore last value. This could be the case. This will be used when you use the last data point. Let's say you're in the middle of this month. For example, you want to make a prediction of next 6 months, but currently we are in April till mid of April. So I don't want to calculate this current month as my data point to predict what would be the next 6 months. So I can ignore last few values or exclude last few values basically. And then I have the option to set the confidence percentage. First, I will create the normal forecasting and then I'll come to the confidence percentage here. Okay, so click on generate and you'll be able to see a chart. Let me go to the smooth line that shows how exactly the sales trend for next 6 months. There is a drop because we are just ignoring the last value here. So let me go ahead and, we just want to include it. All right, so now you see some difference because, okay, one quick point, I just want to capture this. This forecasting is based on the entire data set or the historic data I have. Okay, so I have the range I included right from 2019 January till March 2020. Okay, so when you compare this entire chart, there is a big dip in October and November sales. So considering that, it expect another dip based on the seasonal trend line I have. Okay, so in case if I just reduce this to the last 6 months or something, then the prediction would be slightly different. Okay, but one condition is always you should have minimum of 6 data points. Yes, you should always have minimum of 5 data points to calculate. So it's better you include more number of data points to make some prediction in the forecast. Okay, now let me explain the confidence interval. So confidence interval is nothing but, okay, so now we have this forecasting. Now let me make it as last 8 months instead of choosing the entire data point. All right, so that makes more sense because we are predicting only the last 8 months. So there is no big up and down or big changes in the trend, right? So now I just want to see based on the confidence interval. Let's say confidence interval or the confidence percentage is nothing but this would be the data point. So based on this, I just want to see what would be the possible range that goes from the predicted values. The possible range would be, let's say if I'm confident about that on 80%, then the confident range would be the maximum range that goes could be this, or the minimum range goes could be this. So based on the predicted values, you have a confident range to be chosen. So if you're pretty confident about this percentage of prediction, then you can, this would be the range that possibly the data point could go. So the less confidence interval you have, so you will have the less possibility of understanding the possible range the data points could go. Okay, so this will just help you to understand that apart from the predicted values, what would be the possible range the sales could goes of. It could be the maximum range to the minimum range. Okay, so this is how you'll be enabling the forecasting feature. So it's pretty much straightforward that you can go ahead and enable it. As long as you have a date field in the x-axis and choose the appropriate values in the y-axis, you can go ahead and enable the forecasting feature, and you can set the forecasting interval. Of course, you can customize all those stuff in terms of the look and feel of the forecasting feature. Okay, now the prediction model that what we use is a linear prediction model, because that's something that the algorithms that what we use is a Zoho's algorithm. So it's the feature itself is being developed internally by Zoho team. Okay, but it uses the standard ST algorithm model, which is typically used by most of the BI tools or the forecasting model. But currently, if you ask me whether I can make the prediction based on some other parameter, then it is not available. That's something that we have it in our to-do list. So currently, the prediction can be made only based on the previous historic data points, not based on some other parameters on top of your data points. All right. So that's the forecasting feature. And let me quickly touch base a couple more features here, ASIA and dashboards. But before that, I think we are almost more than 90 minutes. So probably let's take a very quick break, and then let's have a let's continue the ASIA and then the dashboard part, and then let's come to the Q&A session to discuss that in detail. But probably let's take a 10 minutes break from here to just capture the session, because I believe it's too long to listen the deep concepts of chart and pivot and so on. So let's take a 10 minutes break, come back, and let's discuss about the ASIA, how to create the dashboards, widgets, and so on. And then let's have a Q&A session before jumping into the sharing and collaboration feature. All right. So with that, let me go back to the quick break for 10 minutes of time. All right. So thank you so much. See you back in 10 minutes.